Okay. Hey, everybody. Brad Linder back at you again with Kilowog tonight. So, I'm going to share this over with the page so we can get this going. And there we go. Bing. Okay, cool deal. Yeah, that's going to work. I hope. Yay, cool. Alrighty. Now, we have everything running here. So, I'm going to jump right into this because this is one of my absolute favorite characters from the Green Lantern Corps. And he might even rival Sinestro. I prefer, I want to make sure my lead's going to stick there. I prefer John Stewart as the Green Lantern rather than Hal Jordan. I mean, Hal's a great one, but like I said, when I did that card a while back, he's the top dog for me. I like John just a lot better as a Green Lantern. He's well-rounded, and Hal's kind of off his rocker. But Hal Jordan and Plastic Man in DC Comics both remind me of a quirky screwball type of character, and they remind me of Morph from the X-Men from that series. Because after the X-Men came out with from Fox in the 90s, they had that they gained that weird feel, when Plastic Man came back. He had that weird, awkward, haha kind of Will Ferrell funny, that Will Ferrell Jack Black kind of, funny, where you either got it or it was over the top and it didn't resonate with you. And for some reason, it didn't hit me. I just wasn't impressed with it, and I hated that Green Lantern and that version of Plastic Man from the Justice League. Absolutely appall it. I do not like it at all. It's just not the same thing to me. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not something that I will be writing home to tell everybody to check out by any means. It's just not. Now I'm going with more of a movie form of the Ryan Reynolds version of the Green Lantern film, which thankfully in the Justice League they left that out since they decided not to let him do that anymore. They said Howell was off Earth, and there's no longer a lantern. Steppenwolf said there's no longer a lantern on this world to protect you. Blah blah blah, and which ironically didn't appear in the film. It was a trailer piece. It didn't appear in the film, and I thought that was kind of dirty the way they did that. But whatever. Anyway, I found it interesting that they said there was no lantern on the film, and they mentioned that other Earthlings came to help, kind of deal, and gave it honorable mention that way instead of saying, that there's no lantern on Earth, because they're going to bring back the Lantern series, and they're going to pick up, from what I understood, they're going to pick up where the original film left off, so they don't waste that and have to explain how everybody comes back with a reboot. They're going to allow the corpse to come back, but they're going to do a John Stewart version of the Lantern, a John Stewart or a Guy Gardner version of the Lantern, which I'm hoping to do Stewart because I don't like Guy either. I never have, because they made him too much of a jerk to make him ironic and face different elements and be a different type of personality. They were trying to construe a different personality with each one of them, and what they did is they went too far, with Hal's antics, and went completely off the rails with Guy for a while, because through the late 80s, early 90s, Guy was just an absolute pain in the butt when he showed up in the comic books. So bad that the Justice League America ran him off to Justice League International in the storylines. I mean, it was that bad. They kicked him out and made him go to the European division. So that's rough. Um, so we'll see what happens with that, and hopefully the films will work out. But in a piece of news this week, I talked about the problems that I predicted in 2000 and 2005 with the things going on with Marvel being in trouble financially and multiple companies trying to tag team take them over in a hostile takeover situation because of finances after the bubble burst, in the mid 90s. And it came to fruition today. It really did. I was complaining about it back whenever the situation with Marvel being announced that they were going to sell off their properties to 20th Century Fox and to Sony to try and save themselves. I thought that was a bad idea. I think business should expand, not retract, unless it's going to be liquid cash, and it wasn't. Okay? It didn't go liquid cash. It went into assets and stock feeds to split. And then it boomed for a bit, and they thought they were going to have enough money, and then they got these big companies after them, and they still ended up selling out anyway. Okay, so you had Sony and DC and Fox all involved, and it was just bad. It was a bad deal. The Warner Brothers wanted to buy them up. Time Warner went after them for a while, and then the X-Men boom came out in the movies, and the comics picked back up for a little while, and they recovered, and it was a false recovery over 6 months, which they couldn't do, and the book sales didn't pull out the comics like they were supposed to, and they ended up flopping anyway. And then Marvel did the classic comic book run of putting out 50,000 titles just to get it out there and get it going. Okay, so they choked that. Then you had the boom of the movies and stuff, and the Disney announcement to franchise the license and start getting products underway for films. And then they took Disney over in a hostile takeover, which they say they didn't, but I mean, it's obvious. They made a deal for them. Once it went good, they used the money from the films and then took over all their stock and bought them out. I mean, whether you say they did or didn't, and they say they did or didn't, it's on paper. It's clear as day that, there was a hostile takeover situation, and Disney did it to, quote unquote, acquire them. But what ended up happening was it was a takeover. I mean, they just did it flat out. I'm going to switch over to a 7 here because I'm out of lead on the 5, and I'm just going to switch over so I can continue. But after that situation where they got Iron Man and all that coming out, they boomed it, and then they changed it to slowly Disneyize all the characters, okay? And I'm not knocking on Disney. I mean, it's business. I understand that. But what Disney is doing to the Marvel characters outside of the cinematic universe is freaking horrible. They're dismantling 70 years of comic books and just destroying the print industry for the mainstream for those two companies. Marvel and DC just alike, okay? Because DC's in the same trouble. Whether they're going to admit it or not, they are, because the sales aren't there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's public information. You can go check on the sales anywhere you want to on the sales sites. You can do current comic sales and just see that they're crushing it as digital by giving it away, and they're giving away all their business. And then if you check the prints are less than 20,000 a pop. So even their best sellers are drowning. Okay, so it's just bad. But then here's the thing. Let's do it systematically. First off, Marvel decided to try and save themselves from a hostile takeover. So what they did was they auctioned off all their properties to 20th Century Fox for X-Men and Fantastic Four, and then they sold off Spider-Man to Sony. Okay, and they have them for decades on end, and now that's come to a head. They didn't make enough money with the comic books and make enough money to come back, so they ended up getting taken over by Disney anyway in a buyout. Okay, now Disney acquires them and comes out in 2003 and 2005 and says their lineup's coming up with Iron Man be the first film from the new legacy of Disney Marvel. Okay, we knew these movies were going to be great. They're big box office smashes, and they turned out exactly the way they said they would. Okay, they completely held up. And I'm a huge fan, don't get me wrong. It's awesome. But the problem is, here we go. After you have the acquisition of those licenses and those trades, and then the acquisition of Disney buying out Marvel, excuse me, we have the Marvel boom. They invested that money back into the stocks to buy up more and more and more of the property. So they end up taking over Marvel. Now, they've been trying to buy up Time Warner and make a deal with them to buy out a crossover purchase for years. And they just about got it this year. Okay, so that's what's scary. Because now they've Disneyized all the products, so everything you see on screen is going to come out into a cartoony kiddie version in the comic books for the duration of the comics that exist. That's what we've got so far. That's held true 100%. I said that was going to happen in 2005, and it did. And, you know, I mean, in 2010, they had freaking Banshee go back in time to ancient Ireland in X-Men First Class, which was a beautiful comic book. And then they turned it Disney cartoony and ended up screwing it up because they had Banshee, one of the best characters in the X-Men, fighting freaking gnomes in Ireland. And on the cover, he's right there. You can check it out for yourself. It's X-Men First Class. It's number 10, I think it was, in the reboot for 2010. Check it out. It's got Banshee on the cover in a classic Disney cartoon style with little brown gnomes all over him, beating the crap out of him in front of a castle. That's horrible. Now, then you have that going on. So they Disneyized all the characters and whitewashed them all and slowly killed all the books. They made brand new cartoons and brand new films, which are doing awesome, but that's Disney style. Okay? You can't say that they're not liquidating, systematically liquidating Disney, liquidating Marvel for IP properties, period. You cannot say that they're not. And here it comes. In a week's time, okay, in a week's time, they've announced, on Monday, they announced that they had new franchise purchases with new franchise touch-ups with the Spider-Man deal being locked in. Spider-Man's going to appear in Infinity Wars. We know that. The trailer's out. We saw it. Thanos slams him into the ground. We know he's in there. And they announced a side deal with Sony for the new spin-off movies. Okay? So we know that deal's done. So they're in bed with Sony officially. Not just one movie, but they're officially in for the long term with Sony. Now then you have, right after that, they announced Tuesday that they were going to have the new Marvel acquisition, Marvel Disney acquisition of 20th Century Fox. Okay, now what that means is they acquired 20th Century Fox to get back not only the properties of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, but all of the properties over there. And then you have many, many other properties added on top of that. So you have all those licenses back, plus all the stuff on top. Yes, that's going to make for great movies. I'm excited about those. But as far as comics go, that means all those properties can finally be squashed. And they're going to kill them so that they can use them for IP properties. They've already announced that they're going to disclose all of that later in the year after the new year. Now, if you look in previews, which is Diamond Distribution, if you look in previews, this may change, but as of this point, Disney Marvel is no longer listed in anything past March. Everybody's been talking about it for months, okay? That they are not listed for distribution in anything past March of 2018 for the catalog. Hopefully that's wrong and they're going to come back, or they're going to have a plan, or they're going to do something to where they're going to make their own distribution line or whatever they're going to do, okay? But after today's announcement, I'm kind of really disappointed because that proves it right there. It's the final nail in the coffin that they're doing digital and maybe even killing the comic books, okay? Because they did announce last month that they're still doing Marvel Unlimited, and that's where you can get the comic books in the digital format through that subscription service. They're going to have all the comics put on there in 2018. Now, what they're saying is they're going to put all the post issues. They're not saying they're going to have continued issues after that, okay? They're saying they're putting all the post issues on there, all the older comics on there, on that service for access. They're not saying once have they said that they're going to produce new comics on that platform, all right? Now, you put two and two together there. Then on top of that, you put in the final peg of what they announced today, which is Marvel has the Marvel Rising line. Excuse me, coughing and sniffling here. That's the next wave. Okay, they're saying Marvel Disney is going to have Marvel Rising, which is their new studio platform, which is a division of Marvel through Disney that is specifically designed for the new characters being revealed through the new Marvel. That's strictly animation, animated features, animated cartoon series, and a couple of mentions. They mentioned they have a live action thread as well. But for right now, that's probably going to be television series or things like that, or web series maybe. But as it goes right now, they've forementioned just the Marvel Rising featurette. And they've got a series of characters which they're going to be bringing into that. And it's like the old Saturday cartoons from the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, where they had Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck and Goof Troop and, Tailspin and DuckTales and all that. Bonkers for some people. And, that's the kind of feel it has to it, okay? Now, with all of that said and all of that coming out, the line of print comics has not been disclosed as yet. And if you know of any, if you see any, please let me know, because I have not yet found it. If you go to Marvel's website, they're promoting through December, January, and March, but they're not showing anything after March, unless it's a TV show or an animated thing. They're not showing anything for the comic books. So I don't, unless it's a direct web version, they're not talking about the comic books at all anymore. So what I'm thinking is that they finally come to fruition with dismantling the traditional print comics, and that platform is going to go either, like I said, either unlimited to the Marvel Unlimited line, and they're going to do e-comics or virtual comics, digital comics, and do subscriptions that way, or they're going to kill it off completely, and we won't have any more print Marvel. We won't have any monthly trades. We'll have animated series come up and, properties like that. It won't be full comic book monthly series anymore. Which, if they'd have caught up and not done it wrong, they wouldn't have a problem with that. Okay? I'm going to tell you flat out, I've said it for years and years and years. Digital comics, excuse me, digital comics and e-comics are the way to go for the next foreseeable future, period. Because of the fact 89%, as of 2017, 89% of comic book readers absorb comic books and consume comic books from a digital portable format of their tablet, their phone, or some sort of digital device and screening service. 89%. And that's by Amazon and Comixology, which Comixology is owned by Amazon. But that is Amazon and Comixology and Barnes & Noble giving out, and Kindle giving out those stats, okay? Which, of course, Kindle is owned by Amazon as well. But Barnes & Noble is even giving out those stats. They're agreeing with them. So you have to consider where the sources are coming from and where the material's going, okay? That's great for the independent market because of the fact that that's going to give us full reign, because it's either going to be it's all going to go digital and everybody's going to be on a kill even platform, or it's going to go to where print comics for the front end stores and things like that, they're going to have to fulfill their stock, and to keep their doors open for these local comic shops, they're going to have to do something, which means they're going to need comics to sell, which means if Marvel and DC aren't printing anymore, they're going to have to go somewhere to compete. Otherwise, they're just going to be toy stores, or they're going to die off. And independent comics are the way to go, I believe. So we can do print on demand, and we can do small print run and meet that. And then printers are going to have to come down as well. So that's going to be a huge plus for independent market publishers like us, like me specifically. But we're going to have to see how it goes, okay? Because we're going to have to be very careful with this and not just give in and roll over to what Diamond offers right out of the gate, because Diamond's going to be desperate. And they're going to need content, and they're going to have to come back to us. So all these years that they've been rejecting and burning and ripping on and stealing content from independents, they're going to have to back all that up, and they're going to have to verify that they're not going to do that anymore, and they're going to have to put it in writing. So this is a buyer's market, like a real estate bubble. This is a buyer's market for us. Okay, this is a seller's market. We are the sellers in this case, and I'm going to tell you hands down, we have the numbers to do this. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to have to go in and set all this up and get it done. Now, there are going to be digital formats coming up and digital platforms coming up all over the place to put out your comic books. It's happening with magazines and everything, books, all that. I've got one coming out myself in 2018 that you guys will be able to use pretty quick. Okay, and I'm not soliciting. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. It's just an example. So that, I've even got one coming out which I programmed. And it's awesome. But here's the deal. Okay, we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen with the modern age of comics, because Image is going to be the leader in this game from this point on. And then you've got DC still running around out there, which they're talking about going digital, but they don't know if they can or not. Okay, they're talking about it, but they haven't announced if they're going to go with their new platform or not, and whatever. They're running around showing up on all different platforms now. They're showing up in Kindle, they're showing up in Amazon, they're showing up in the Motion Comics platform, they're showing up on Spotify, they're showing up everywhere right now that they can get a digital foothold before the new year. Okay, and that's what they're trying to do. They're testing out the digital platform, which as a marketer, I know how to do that, and they need to come to me for that, and I could fix it in a heartbeat, but they won't do it because of the fact that they don't know me. So whatever. But anyway, the problem being is this, okay? Marvel and DC both have not planned for this platform where Image and Dark Horse, excuse me, choking on a throat drop, Dark Horse Comics, both prepared for this back in 2001. Image has been doing digital comics since 2001. Late 2001, I think, early 2002. December and January is when they started them back in 2002. Okay. Now, then you have Dark Horse Comics, which they've done digital comics forever. I mean, forever, like since 2000. And you can do direct order, print on demand versions, as well as digital versions of their comics. Hands down, they're the front runner. But Image, of course, has more clout. But again, the thing about this, to think about it and keep in mind, is the problem that DC Comics, just as of March, okay, with the current public stats, which they haven't given out anything past that, the current stats of 2017 came out in March. And what they did is Overstreet says that their consumer sales are less than 50,000 copies a book, okay? In most cases, they're less than 25,000 copies per issue per month from like November up to March. November of 2016 up to March of 2017. Now think about those numbers. That's dead on, just like nothing, okay? That's bottom of the barrel breaking, okay? Now you think about those sales, and then you think about what they gave away in digital downloads. If you check out what they did and it gave away in their digital downloads, they're claiming over 300,000 downloads a month that they gave away for free, because they gave away digital comics online and gave away their digital comics included in links in their comic books. Okay, a free digital copy like Marvel was doing forever, and they did it as promotional stuff. Okay, so let me tell you what ends up happening. You have that going on, and you have 300,000 copies, which DC doesn't sell. They give away as free promotional and think they're word of mouth. And Marvel does the same thing. They give them away for free. They have the unlimited digital Marvel stuff that they give away for free all the time. They do sell some of their comics digitally, but not many. It's select issues, okay? but they give away digital copies of their books as well in the books that you purchase. So they think, well, now you got a digital copy and you're going to share it with your friend, and your friend's going to buy a book, and then your friend's going to buy a book, and then your friend's going to buy a book, and word of mouth selling is going to give everybody a book, and everybody's going to go on and buy the next issue because they're going to get hooked on this one and they're going to want it. So guess what happens? They sell millions and millions and millions of comic books that they've given away, you know, thousands and thousands of comic books in print, and then they've given away millions and millions of copies for free. They gave them away for free. They didn't cash in on them at all. Now you want to tell me how 3 million copies of digital comics from Marvel get handed out and downloaded and distributed, but yet people are screaming for years on end, oh, digital comics will never sell. I'll never buy a digital comic. I'll never download a digital comic. I'll never have a digital comic. You tell me what's going to happen when comics stop in print and then they flip over. If they flip over in the market, Warner Brothers is behind, okay? DC and Warner Brothers is behind on the digital market. They should have been monetizing it for years. So should have Marvel. Now, when everybody switches off of print, you're not going to be able to get comics anymore. So what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to go to digital format. They think they're geniuses on it. I don't think so. I think they missed the market because they gave away all that extra money, which killed their market in the first place. So, you know, I mean, no matter which way you agree with it or disagree with it, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, nonetheless, they've given away 350,000 copies per month at Warner Brothers, DC, and they're giving away millions of copies a month digitally at Marvel. Now, two things are going to happen. When they stop distributing print-wise, in print, other than trades, they're going to have a problem because they haven't been selling to this market. What everybody doesn't get wrong, they think, well, they're going to jump on board. No, there's going to be two problems here. You're going to have a split right down the middle because it's either going to be, A, people aren't going to want them because they're digital, and they're not going to want them because they're not free anymore, and they're mad that the prints are canceled. And then you have the two prongs of the digital side, okay? Because you got the print guys that are going to say, I'm not going to buy it in digital. You stop printing it, so I'm not going to buy it. So they boycott it. Boom, done. Okay? And then you have the two sides of the digital. So you have people going, well, the print stopped, so now they're charging me the cover price of the comic book in print. So now they're not free anymore, so I'm going to stop reading it. So they stop reading it, and they lose the readership because it's not free anymore. And they can't understand why they're being charged because they've been trained not to pay for the comic books in digital format. So they've trained their customers to be free tire kickers. Bad, bad, bad move. So now you've got all these digital comic readers that don't want to pay for it, and they're all mad at Disney and Marvel, and they're mad at DC and Warner Brothers for charging them for these free books. Okay? Then you have the second side of it, which is when they switch from the digital platform, from the print platform to the digital platform, and then choke out the other side of that prong, they're going to be mad because they're going to find out, well, you're charging me now, but yet you've given away all these comics free prior, so I need to get the free comics first because I didn't know they were there and you didn't advertise them. So now they're going to be mad that all these other people got all these free downloads and they're having to pay for them. So you see the contradiction in the training of the customers and the fan base. That's the problem right there. There's a triple point problem right there. And people don't care and think about it because they're like, oh, I'm Warner Brothers. I don't have to worry about that because I'll make my money off my TV shows and my movies and my licenses because we're the company and DC is just a brand. See, that's what people don't realize. DC is a brand. It is not a company within itself. It is a brand. It is a brand chapter or division of Warner Brothers. It owns a lot of IP properties under that brand, but it's still a brand. And if it's not profiting, they can shut it down in a heartbeat. Just like Marvel. DC is owned by Warner Brothers. Disney owns Marvel. Marvel is a brand, people. It is no longer a company. It is a brand. Disney is the company that decides whether it's owned and operated and funded or not. So what's going to happen is when they kick it out and they say, well, the Marvel brand's not selling anymore. Bye-bye Marvel. Nobody's going to be mad at Disney about that. They're going to be mad at Marvel. Think about that. Because they're not realizing the fact that it is a company brand. You know, it's like Johnson's & Johnson's owning your lunch bags at Ziploc. Ziploc is a brand, not a company. It might even be an LLC, but guess what? It's a brand operating under the company. The company is not the brand. The brand is a product or service under the company. Think about that. They're manipulating it, and after today, with the announcement of the acquisition of Fox, of 20th Century Fox, and then with the acquisition of them getting Disney getting in bed with Sony for long term for Spider-Man stuff, and then you have the aspect of their new digital line of animated series and comics for the cartoons for the next wave of Disney taking over Marvel and dismantling it, and not announcing any further comic books. Their print line is being dead, as in like kaput, finished, not existent anymore, unless they jump out with something in 2018 and announce that the comics are still going on, which would surprise the heck out of me, and I hope that they do, because I'm just saying as of this point, there's not any announcement on it. I'm hoping that I come across something and that changes. But as of this point, it's dead in the water, people. Marvel as we know it is gone. I mean, yes, we may get Hugh Jackman back to work with Disney on, an appearance for Wolverine. That would be great, because he said that's the only way he would come back to the franchise. However, in the same token, Disney's policy is to never do a film over PG-13. So now that they own Deadpool 2 will come out in the same way, in the same fashion that Deadpool 1 came out. But after that, what's going to happen with the franchise? Is it going to go PG? You got to think about that. What are we going to get out of it? And then on top of that, you have the further aspect of whether they're going to take over Warner Brothers or not, Time Warner, because Disney's trying to buy out Time Warner, and they've been publicly after them for years to do a crossover promotion, to get in bed with them for that, or to take them out in a hostile takeover for their business. So you think about that one. I mean, I'm just putting that out there, and I know that's harsh, because I'm not ripping on the comic industry. I'm glad, because as an independent publisher, we've got all the options. We've got all the control. So think about that. I mean, this is a win-win for us, because we get great Disney movies, Disney Marvel movies now, and we'll get the X-Men back with the franchise and get the FF back with the franchise, which is awesome. So that'll be cool. They'll be back under the brand. That's great. But then you have to think about the other side of it and think about the business aspect, because nobody thinks about this stuff until it happens. But basically, Disney's running around absorbing everything mainstream in the comic industry and then liquidating it into IP properties to where we don't have any comics anymore, digital or otherwise, from these great books and comics and stuff they got. DC just released earlier this week the whole brand new DC line of comics, and they got Plastic Man in the mix. They got the unknown Adventures of the Unknown and all these great stories. Excuse me, but they're talking about doing them digital. They're talking about digital comics on them. They're not talking about releasing them in print. I mean, they got honorable mention that way, but they didn't clearly state if they're going to do that yet or not. But who knows until 2018 when the catalogs come out if they're still going to be listed or not. We got to wait and see. But you think about that one for a second and think about it. If you're a comic creator, if you're an independent comic creator, this is a great time to step in for us, because Diamond's willing to listen, because those storefronts need populated material and products. But then on top of that, you've got to consider, with DC and Marvel going out of the Image position for print comics, what's going to happen? They're going to have to do something. They got storefronts they have to provide for. All those indie publishers are still going to jump in. I mean, you still got, like I said, you still got Dynamite Entertainment with Boom and Image and Dark Horse and all these other publishers that are still in print. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to flop in sales because of the fact that everybody's going to go digital and choke them out in the next couple of months, because that's the new fad that Marvel Disney set the standard for, and that's what Warner Brothers is leading into. So think about that one. Think about it. It could happen, folks. It could really happen. I mean, we are right there on the verge of the next evolution in comics. And, you know, it's going to be a big deal. It's really going to be a big deal. 2018 is going to be a massive year for comics in transition. Okay? I don't think print will go away right away immediately, but I think that if you're not producing digital comics as well as print, you're going to be in trouble in the next couple of years. I do see it being something that's going to turn away. And more magazines are doing that. I mean, magazines and newspapers have all but shut down unless they're in a digital subscription format. So, you know, and they did that 10 years ago. So they're way ahead of the curve. And, you know, comics have to catch up. But think about it and think about where your business is going and what you're going to do, because I'm telling you flat out, I've been preaching this since 2001. And I'm telling you now, the technology's finally caught up with the business and the industry. And I guarantee you, my comics are going to be available in both formats. So, you know, whether you want to print on demand, trade collected in 3 or 4 months when a couple of issues come out, or whether you want to buy it tomorrow immediately on print on demand, that, you know, or digital, that's fine. Both those formats will be available to you. So it's just one of those things we got to start thinking about as business people. And you know, that's part of my thing with my marketing and my comics stuff is, you know, I talk to people all the time that get mad at me. It's like, well, I'm an artist, man. I don't have to deal with that. That's just business. You know, I don't think Marvel's going to do that. Marvel's not that underhanded, blah, blah, blah. Marvel's a company, dude. Get over yourself. Marvel's a company. If you want to be a professional comic producer and publisher, you got to get your head out of your butt and start looking at the light that's shining around and see who's the spotlight's shining on. It's time to get a little real with that, you know? So, anyway, there we go. There's Kilowog. I've got to clean this card up now because I smudged the pencil everywhere. Well, I'll do that when I ink it and erase it. But there is Kilowog for you guys. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't run anybody off by talking a little business too much. But I thought, you know, everybody wanted to know some more about the comic business stuff. So, there we go. Excuse me. We have that in place so you guys can talk about that. And feel free to leave comments and whatever and tell me what you think, you know, because I hear all the time good and bad from it, and whatever works, man. So we will talk to you guys tomorrow with another card. Until then, hug somebody, smile at somebody, wave at somebody, tell them hi. Do something simple to make somebody feel good for at least the evening in the moment. So until then, talk to you later.